That's so fucking weird. Hey everyone, welcome to this special Star Trek Strange New Worlds live stream. So tonight I'm going to be talking about the latest episode of Season 4, which went out today. So this is all fresh in my head from earlier. Star Trek Strange New Worlds, Season 4, Episode 03. The episode is called Human Best Friend. And it might be quite a short discussion tonight because it's quite hard to talk about this episode, really. It doesn't have that much going on. It's hard to talk about it in order, in any kind of structure. And to be quite honest, it's a very forgettable throwaway episode. That didn't do much for me. I think this might be one of the weakest Strange New Worlds episodes so far. It may well be the weakest, I would have to think about it. Definitely the low light of this season so far, and I'll talk more about why as I go through it. Before I get into the episode tonight, welcome to the new channel members. Good to have you on board, and there's plenty of exclusive content on the channel that I've been putting up the last few weeks. So some exclusive clips. You also get live streams, read-alongs once in a while, and various other exclusives and early access to things. So lots to enjoy, hours to enjoy over on channel memberships. But before I dive into this episode, let's have a little preview of it, shall we? Okay. There will be many times tonight when you might see a clip or an image and you'll think, what the bloody hell am I watching? Believe me, I thought the same when I watched the episode earlier. So the plot for this one, in fact, I'll get an image up. After Pike's number 2, Una, suggests the crew take a shore leave break on a pleasure planet, the previously bickering Erica Ortegas and Scotty awaken with no memory of the previous day. They must work together to piece together their memories and return the crew of the Enterprise in time for peace meetings. This includes finding the missing shuttle. It's one of those everyone's on the trip except Erica type episode. And Star Trek has a rich history of these shore leaves type episodes where plenty of antics happen. For example, this episode from the original series. Just make sure I got the right clip.
Captain's log, stardate 3025.8. A planet which seems to be paradise is chosen for a shore leave, but things of fantasy, which are undeniably real, suddenly appear.
Sulu!
Enjoy yourself, Captain. It's an interesting planet. I believe you'll find it quite pleasant. You'll have no problems.
I swear I heard someone moving around.
Don't talk like that.
Well, I am on shore leave.
And so am I.
All right, Jimmy boy.
More of that sort of stuff to come. In fact, I did a commentary of that episode of the original series, which you can find on Patreon if you want to join in for exclusive commentaries. So the big guest for this episode of Strange New Worlds is stand-up comedian Dave Foley, better known by Canadians for the original Kids in the Hall. There's a picture of Dave Foley, and he plays, and there's another image here, the very fuzzy host of the planet, Deadtrue, who looks a bit like a fuzzy character mixed with the 1960s style Doctor Who. And he's a good example of this episode leaning a bit too far into the goof and cheesiness. But Dave Foley there, very familiar faces to Americans and Canadians especially. I also know him quite well. Okay. So the first thing to say about this episode, I think, is that it does have a strange placement in the season. It feels very much like it should have been episode 2. Partly because it feels like a lighter breather type episode, like them going to the shore leave planet. It just feels like something they would do before you get into too much of the season and the heaviness of the season, maybe. And it feels like a come down after the first episode, the big dinosaur episode. And there's some thematic links that would have made sense with some of the characters. It does feel then it's a little bit out of place. Like some of the stuff with Luan, it would make more sense if this episode happened before her big episode last week, I would have said. And there was a rumor that it was meant to be episode 2 also. So it wouldn't surprise me if they shifted around the order for whatever reason. One plus point in the episode that I will give it, and this is more of a relief really, but Erica and Scotty basically learned to be just friends. So we didn't get the romance which they were teasing between the characters. And maybe it was never on the cards. I'm assuming they never intended it anyway, but it was on my mind. In that first episode, they were teasing it a little bit, and I was hoping it wouldn't happen. I thought it was more refreshing if they had a little bit of a banter between them and they just learned to get along in the end and just be good friends, and or at least friends, and get on. And it's that thing I have, a pet peeve of shows like this, where not everyone has to have a romantic interest and be connected. And check out Scotty's shirt right there. That's just the colourful flavour of this week's episode. They're on shore leave, so it makes sense also. But they also have decent chemistry, the two actors. So that's at least one plus point for the episode. I think a big problem with this sort of episode is that it doesn't really feel a lot like a classic Trek episode. It feels more like a collection of skits, and in this case, with hardly any gimmick or theme, which is really pulling it together and giving it a flavor or a vibe which you can really get behind. Erica trying to locate the missing shuttle, it's really lame. Like, I really couldn't care about that plot. Like, it's really scraping the bottom of the barrel. It's just more antics for the sake of antics. If you look at a more solid episode from last season, in fact, from a similar point in the season, that does this kind of thing much better, then you're talking about Wedding Bell Blues from early season 3, and that had a clear gimmick, a sharper sense of humor, and actual character development. Not the best episode ever of Trek or Strange New Worlds, but it achieved what it wanted to do and was a better example of what this episode was going for, I think. This episode, for the most part, was just very scattershot. There was a lot of bouncing from scene to scene, and it was just a gimmick I could never get on board with, having everyone except Erica on the trip. It just something too cringe, something where it was a little bit overboard. Like, I heard Alison Pregner talking about this earlier, than having everyone except Erica on the trip just got a bit too annoying and jarring, and it just gets repetitive after a while, where you're just bouncing from character to character, scene to scene, and it's almost like bouncing from antics to antics, and there's nothing really to pull it all together in a satisfying way. So it just got very grating very quickly for me, and that's how I feel about a lot of the episode. It would be one thing if the comedy was better, like, because they were clearly going for a more goofy comedic episode, but because the comedy wasn't very funny by and large, then it really just annoyed me a lot. This is definitely a low light of the show, sadly. The other thing I would say is, because Strange New Worlds is already quite a quirky show, it feels like the sort of show where you don't need these extra bits of like goofiness or like comedic, where the comedy's too far in the forefront. It sort of feels then the idea is that you work some of that stuff in around the more classic Trek stuff. Because the reason I enjoyed the past 2 episodes so much is because they were working with a number of different things. It felt like they were high concept, gimmick type episodes. So you had the dinosaurs in week 1 combined with the politics of the episode, and then the time travel. It definitely had plenty of flavor and identity, episode 1, but with some classic Trek themes also. And then last week, you obviously had a full-on horror episode, which for Trek is a bit of a novelty. You don't get that very often. And it turned out to be a really effective hour of TV. But you also had some great ideas in there as well, and some great character beats. So there was a lot going on in both the opening 2 episodes, and not a whole lot going on in this episode. And it just didn't have that balance. It just didn't have enough of a story to really pull me in. And unfortunately, the comedy was falling flat as well. So it was, like I said, a little bit of a dud with this one. I think the comedy just got a bit too goofy and cheesy, and just didn't feel like enough of a Trek episode. It just feels like one of those crossing the line type episodes. Another point about the Erica stuff is, as a character, like, what does Erica really learn in this episode? It's like, we already know she has confidence when it comes to flying the bloody ship. Like, what does she really learn? and it's almost like it's just she gets to be the protagonist episode, like she gets to be the hero and save the day, and that's almost like the novelty. Like I said, her and Scotty work quite well together, and they've got pretty decent chemistry, so I don't mind them being the two leads, but I don't really feel that it impacted that much on the Erica character, or we found out anything new about her. The episode last season gave her a lot more to do and gave her a lot more focus. So yeah, not really a lot new that we learned about Erica in this episode, or a lot new than it gave her to really do or develop the character. And the first scene of the crew entering the pleasure planet with that wild lens flare, which was very much in your face OTT, it's just like a flower power effect. And that just sets up how cheesy the episode's going to be and the wrong kind of vibes for me. A couple of things in this sort of seem like Trek Easter eggs a little bit. So I would say some of the Kirk and Spock stuff seem to be just hinting at Trek's past with how much of a bromance they have. And you also have this, I mean, the comedy of him not knowing them, Kirk was really there, but then unburdering on him with all his like dark sort of secrets. I guess that's okay. He's meant to be on the trip. I don't know exactly how he didn't know then Kirk was in the room the whole time. That's a bit far-fetched, but and the stuff with them on the bridge at the end of the episode was okay, with Kirk giving him a smack to prove that he is actually there. But that just feels like a little bit of a Trek Easter egg of their past, and the fact that, at least according to some fans, you have a bit of like a bromance between them two. There's also an Easter egg because of the shore leave clip, which I showed you before, and the idea of when you see Scotty waking up in that furry outfit, like a dragon outfit or whatever it was meant to be, that feels like a nod to that shore leave episode, and the whole Easter vibe that that episode was going for as well. It's just weird to describe because for some reason, it might just be because this is a modern Trek show, but it just feels than an episode from the 60s being a bit more campy and goofy just works, as long as there's a decent enough theme and story, and you can sort of appreciate it maybe for what it was at the time and being a bit ahead of its time. It's almost like this episode doesn't really achieve that much than hasn't been done before. Another character I think was wasted is Hulu this week. I mean, yeah, it's almost like she just gets to dress up in a very glamorous, flamboyant way, and that's about it. Like, it's all about the costume and the hair and not a lot else. It's almost like she could have had the episode off. It's like, I think it's just the novelty of having characters play something other than they don't normally play. Like, you can see in Benga there, who's doing his whole cocktail thing as the barman in the episode. It's similar with him, like just giving him something a bit more fun to play with, and that stuff's fine. He's quite fun in that one little scene. Hulu, not so much. Like, it's a bit of a one-note gag. One of the better gags in the episode, I think, is definitely Una turning on the entertainment when she sings. This is funny timing, but she sings A Total Eclipse of the Heart, the classic love ballad, which, would you believe, is a Klingon love ballad, a Klingon love power ballad. Who knew, people? RIP to Bonnie Tyler, who died about a month or so ago. But that's just funny timing because this episode would have been written a long time before that. but that was one of the better scenes, I think. Her performance was very good. I seem to remember she being one of the standout singers in the musical episode a couple of seasons ago, but it was a great performance. She was giving it a nice bit of verve, and that gag just landed. It didn't feel that it was ever too goofy or like, what's the point in this? Pike, on the other hand, is another character who just could have had a week off. Whenever he's playing a more goofy version of himself, it's just like Anson Mount is playing a more hammy version of himself, really. It just feels than him being the dry, sort of understated, cuddly Pike is just more his strong suit. And you work things around there, you work the character stuff around there and the wit, but just having him break character so much and just play a version of Anson Mount, it just feels and that gets a bit tedious whenever that happens. It's almost that thing of he's having too much fun, like some of the actors in this episode are having too much fun, and that doesn't always lead to the audience having that much fun or getting that much from the episode. And the tattoo gag was pretty weak sauce also. The Spock mime meld stuff, I guess it was okay. So the gag was he mime molded with a plant, which is meant to be a way to try and help out Erica and Scotty locate where the ship was. It had something to do with the computer. It was very, very loose, I've got to say. And it was fine at first. It was a decent bit of humor, and okay, that's a little different because he's mind molding with a plant this week. But it just got a bit tedious when you started seeing them as plants. Like, that became the gag, because when they got back on the ship later, he could still see Erica as nothing but a plant. It's okay. Yeah, whatever. So the gag wore thing quite fast. Not Spock's vintage week, but he's had a strong run on the show. It seems then for a while it took people time to accept him as Spock, but I think now he has made the role his own, where it's enough of a prestige, enough of a homage to like Leonard Nimoy's Spock, but he's also doing his own thing. So yeah, Ethan Peck and Spock have come a long way on Strange New Worlds. But speaking of scenes where it was like, what the hell are we watching? That brings me on to the Nurse Chapel bingo scene, which, by the way, you get a cameo from one of the writers there as a bingo caller. So Nurse Chapel playing bingo with some aliens, demons, whatever they're meant to be, and it basically turns into a fight club. Yes, I can't believe I said that. It turned into a fucking fight club. By the way, are the writers going to give Chapel something to do this season? 3 episodes back to back, she's been reduced to bloody cameos in a row. The highlight of this season so far has been Chapel bringing Spock new ears last week. Come on, get with it, writers. She at least has her own episode coming up later in season 4, so I'm excited to see what they do with the Nurse Chapel themed episode later in the season, because she really needs something a bit more to be doing. The Lalande stuff was fine. It wasn't the best for her this week, but she did get to play a version of herself, really. Like, she was into the martial arts. She was teaching martial arts. And then she inserted herself into the chapel scene, because at some point she's recruited by Erica to break up everyone's fun and to round them all up and get them on the ship. So when Chapel's getting involved in the bingo stuff, Lam breaks in and starts a fight club, but eventually rounds up everyone. And that's fine because she, as I said, she just gets to play a version of herself like a badass. I was getting some vibes with her in this episode, which probably was intentional, but some similarities to Mirror Universe Kira from Deep Space Nine. But I'll definitely say that show gave that the character and actress a lot more to play with. But still, that was one of the better parts of the episode, the Lan stuff, even though she wasn't really given that much to do after such a great episode for her last week. But yeah, that's the episode. It's hard to talk about in that much order. We get the roundup stuff on the ship, Erica trying to alert Pike and the rest, and hey, there's a bomb which is about to be detonated, and trying to get their attention when they're having these peace meetings, which are put in threat because of Pike's tattoo and the fact that everyone's still high. And a lot of this stuff just wasn't hitting for me. It was all very one note and lame. By the end, the episode just feels a little bit rushed, and it leaves no impact on the show or characters. It fails even as a good comedic episode. So this one really didn't do much for me. One of the worst episodes of the whole show. It may be the worst one. It's definitely the weakest so far this season. I know last season the consistency of the show went down and it felt that there was a lack of direction, and overall it felt like a weaker season. This season's obviously off to a flyer, so I'm definitely not going to be too disheartened by a clunker of an episode, because you're always going to get one or two of these a season as long as you don't have too many. When it comes to the MVP of the episode, I'll probably go Erica. It is her episode, and I think she does a good, solid job. Like, she's a very watchable presence in the episode, even though it's not like a standout for the character. I'll go Una as a runner-up just because I found her Total Eclipse of the Heart performance entertaining, and the gag of it being like a Klingon power ballad. Least valuable player I'll give to Uhuru, because yeah, this is an episode that she could have taken an episode off without doubt. Run up, I'll probably go with Pike because his stuff was really great in. And overall for the episode, if I was being generous, I might go 5 out of 10, 5.5, but this one really didn't hit for me, so I'm going to give it just the 4 out of 10. Definitely a low point for the show so far, but hopefully it bounces back next week. And speaking of next week on Star Trek Strange New Worlds, it's this.
Hit it. You heard me say hit it, right? Spock? Anyone? Did you go to season 4 without me?
Yes, Puppets on Strange New Worlds next week, so you can expect my review of that about this time next week. And I'll definitely do another one of these live streams covering a future episode. I don't think it will be next week, but maybe the week after or the week after. So keep checking out for those. And let me know what you guys think of this episode of Strange New Worlds. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree? Are you more favorable on the episode? How did the humor hit for you? And what were some of your highlights and least favorite parts of the episode? Also, what do you think of the season so far? Let me know in the comments. Like and subscribe as always. You can also hit the hype button after this video goes live. And there will be many more live streams coming up on the channel, including tomorrow night. I'm back for the normal Friday night horror stream. And this week, I'm watching an old movie from the 30s called Ghost Camera. So that'll be the watch tomorrow. And I'll also be live next week. It's my birthday stream next week. And I have some stuff planned for that, including a watch of the 1980s Flash Gordon. So if you're a fan of that movie, hang out with me to watch that next Thursday. And also, I think we'll probably be watching a Tales from the Crypt episode as well, which you can go and vote on now. I put a poll up earlier that you guys can vote on. But let me know what you think of this episode. As I said, keep watching Star Trek, keep watching Strange New Worlds, and I'll see you guys soon. Goodbye.